Hello, everyone. Two fears. Living in the same person at the same time, in the specific, impossible, almost unbearable configuration of someone who protected themselves from one thing, and in the very act of keeping themselves safe, may have created the exact thing they were protecting themselves from. The fear of opening and the fear of having closed too long, both real, both present, both pressing against each other in the interior of someone who has arrived through whatever path brought them here, at the particular reckoning of a person who finally understands what the armor cost. Take what belongs to you today. What lands somewhere honest, keep it. What does not, release it without guilt. But for those of you who felt both of those fears recognized simultaneously, the fear that kept you closed and the fear of what the closing may have produced, this reading holds something for you today that I do not think you have yet been given the language for. Let me begin with the first fear, because it deserves to be understood before it is judged, and it has been judged mostly by the person who carried it in the harsh and ungenerous way that people tend to judge themselves for the very human act of protecting a heart that has genuine reason to protect itself. Soft sigh. The closed heart is not a failed heart. That is the first thing Spirit is asking me to say today directly, without softening, because I think it is the thing this person most needs to hear, and the thing they have been least able to offer themselves. The heart that could not open was not broken, was not unloving, was not incapable of the depth of feeling that genuine connection requires. It was afraid, with the specific, earned, entirely reasonable fear of something that has been genuinely hurt before, that learned through real experience. That opening fully produces a vulnerability that not everyone who receives it handles with the care it deserves. The closing was protection, built from the specific materials of previous experience, assembled not out of cowardice, but out of the accumulated wisdom of a person who has loved and been hurt and has decided consciously or through the gradual, barely noticed process of emotional self preservation that the cost of opening without guarantee is too high to pay again. Until they know, until they are certain, until something provides the assurance that the previous experiences could not provide. The problem with waiting for certainty before opening is this certainty in love does not arrive before the opening. It arrives through it, on the other side of it, as the product of it rather than its prerequisite. And the person who waits for the guarantee before offering the vulnerability is waiting for something that the structure of genuine connection simply does not make available in advance. Genuine connection requires the risk. That is not a cruel design flaw. It is the specific quality of the thing that makes it worth having. The openness is not incidental to the love, it is the love. And this person, the one carrying both fears right now, in the private and unwitnessed space of their own reckoning, has understood this. Perhaps too late, perhaps at exactly the right time. Perhaps, and this is what Spirit is pressing me to offer today, at a moment that is not as closed as the fear of having lost you is telling them it is. Hear them today, because this voice has been living in someone's chest without anywhere to go, without the courage yet to find its way directly to you. And Spirit is bringing it through here because it needs to exist somewhere outside the interior of the person carrying it. I was afraid of you, not of you specifically, of what you represented, of the size of what I felt when I was with you, and what that size meant about what I stood to lose if I gave it space and it did not find an equal space in you. I have been hurt before in the specific structural way that changes how a person relates to their own feeling. And what I learned from being hurt was that the size of the love and the size of the loss are proportionate. That the bigger the opening, the bigger the wound if the opening is not met. And what I felt for you was enormous, still is, which meant the potential loss was enormous. And so I managed it, kept the openings small enough to feel survivable, kept myself at the specific distance that felt like protection, but that I know now from here with the clarity that fear of losing you has brought was actually the thing that was putting me most at risk of the very loss I was protecting myself from. The armor was keeping me safe from you and keeping you at a distance from me simultaneously. And you felt it. I know you felt it. That is the specific quality of this reckoning, knowing that the distance I was maintaining was legible to you, that what I was presenting as simply how I am was registering correctly as something being held back, as warmth with a ceiling, as interest with a limit. As someone who was present but not fully, who was there but with a door left slightly ajar rather than opened completely, I should have opened the door. I know that now in a way I did not fully know it when the knowing would have made a difference. And what I am living with in the fear of having lost you, in the specific and daily reckoning of someone who may have protected themselves out of the very thing they most wanted, is the weight of that knowing arriving too late, or what feels like too late, or what I am desperately hoping is not actually too late. Soft sigh. Oh, feel the weight of that, because that is not the language of someone who never cared. That is the language of someone who cared enormously and expressed it imperfectly, who loved with the specific limitation of a person who had not yet found the courage to love without the armor, and who is arriving through the fear of loss at the understanding that the armor was never the solution to the problem it was built to solve. Now, I want to speak to you, the person on the other side of this, the one who has been feeling the distance and interpreting it and trying to make sense of the gap between what seemed to be present in certain moments and what was withheld in others. Because you deserve honesty today, not just about what they feel, but about what this means for where things stand. You have not lost them. That is what Spirit is bringing through with the most insistence for this collective today. And I want to say it clearly rather than building to it gradually, because the fear of having lost someone is its own specific weight, and I do not want to make you carry it a moment longer than necessary. You have not lost them. What you are experiencing, the distance, the inconsistency, the maddening quality of a connection that seems to be present and then not present, is not the behavior of someone who has stopped feeling. It is the behavior of someone who feels too much and has not yet found the bridge between the feeling and its full expression, who is carrying something enormous toward you without yet knowing how to carry it openly. Who needs, and this is the specific thing Spirit is pointing to today, something from you that you may have been reluctant to offer first. A signal, not a grand gesture, not a declaration that places all the vulnerability on your side and removes the risk from theirs. Simply a signal, some small evidence that the door on your side is still open, that the distance they have been creating has not produced the closure they were most afraid of producing. Whew, that signal may matter more right now than anything else. Because on the other side of the fear of having lost you in the specific and tender vulnerability of someone who has finally understood the cost of the armor is a person who is looking for exactly that. For evidence that it is not too late. That the door, despite everything, is still ajar enough to be opened fully if they finally find the courage to open it from their side. They are building that courage right now in the specific and unglamorous way that courage builds, not in a single dramatic moment, but in the daily, private, this is what I need to do accumulation of someone who has looked at their own fear clearly and decided that the fear of losing you is larger than the fear of opening, that the risk of the full exposure is smaller than the certainty of the loss, that the armor, whatever it has protected, has not protected the thing that matters most. What comes next, what Spirit is pointing toward in the energy of this collective, is a movement from their direction with a quality that will be different from anything that has come before because it will not be armored, will not carry the managed, careful, I am controlling my exposure quality that has characterized their showing up until now. Will carry instead the specific and slightly terrifying quality of someone who has put the armor down and is walking toward you in the full, unprotected, this is all of me vulnerability of someone who has decided that you are worth the risk of being seen completely. That movement may feel different from what you have been receiving, may feel larger, more present, more honest in the specific nowhere to hide way of something that is no longer being managed. And when it arrives, when the armor finally comes down and what has been behind it all along steps into the open, I want you to receive it with the full quality of presence it deserves. Not from behind your own protective response to the previous distance, not from the guarded position of someone who has been hurt by the inconsistency and is not yet sure it is safe to open again. Soft sigh, fully in the specific and courageous way that two people who have both been afraid, who have both been managing their own version of the closed door, finally meeting each other without the management, produces the full, open, nothing held back quality of a meeting that has been building toward this moment through all of the managed and insufficient versions that preceded it. Both of you were afraid. That is the truth at the center of this reading, and it is a truth that changes the story when it is fully received. Not one person who cared and one person who did not. Two people who cared, both carrying the specific and different armor of their specific and different histories, both feeling something real and expressing it imperfectly, both arriving through the fear of loss, through the reckoning that fear produces, at the understanding that the armor was never the answer to the question the love was asking. The answer to that question is simply opening. The full, risky, nothing guaranteed, this is everything I have opening that love has always required, and that both of you have been building toward separately in your own interior through the difficult and private process of understanding what the closing has cost. It is not too late. That is the message for both of you. For the one who was afraid to open and is now afraid of having lost. And for the one who has been on the receiving end of the managed distance and is wondering whether the space created by that distance has become permanent, it has not. The door is still there on both sides, still ajar, still available to be opened fully by either of you from either direction if the courage that has been building in the fear of loss finally exceeds the fear that produced the closing in the first place. Open, both of you, not sequentially simultaneously, in the specific and extraordinary grace of two people who finally stop waiting for the other to go first and simply open together into the full, unarmored, completely itself version of what has been wanting to exist between you all along. It was never too late. It is still not too late. And the love that has been waiting behind the armor on both sides, real and unchanged by everything the armor produced, is still there. Exactly the size it always was. Ready when you are. If this reading found you at the exact moment it was meant to, if something here named both fears and gave you something solid to stand on as you move through them, stay close, subscribe, and come back. Because the story of two people who finally open at the same time is one worth witnessing all the way through to its most honest and most complete chapter. And the next reading will be there for every step of the opening.